It's my pleasure to officially begin our September EIT meeting with a presentation by Dr. Connie Richardson. Connie serves as our Dana Center consultant and brings a wealth of experience as a math faculty member. We've invited her to share insights from her work to help you consider best ways to support your students, faculty, and staff. Connie?
Thank you, Jen. As Jen said, I am former math faculty, but I've spent the last 12 years supporting systems and states as they've implemented math pathways, co-requisite supports, and multiple measures placement. So I'm going to spend a few minutes. There have been many lessons learned across the country in that process. So I'm going to spend a few minutes discussing those lessons learned. As systems have innovated on the work, especially as they relate to how an EIT team might support faculty and staff in the redesign work. So if I can share my screen and right. So some of the big categories of lessons learned are keeping the focus on student academic goals, messaging to students, internal communications, promoting and honoring departmental collaboration, and that is all of the disciplines as well as the services, and inspecting data throughout. We're going to briefly discuss each of these in turn. So focusing on students' academic goals. So I've got sort of a three-step process here, and the order being important, which is why they're numbered instead of bulleted. And so when a student comes on campus, we want them to identify a program. If they can't identify a program right away, typically they can choose a meta major or a cluster of programs that are similar and have a common math requirement. Then that program choice triggers the identification of what that appropriate math pathways course is for that student. And then the placement measures identify whether the student enrolls in a co-requisite version of pathways course or they qualify for the college level, standalone college level version. If we don't focus on the particular order of this sequence, then the placement measures can become a pathways filter, and therefore a program filter and a life filter. Here's what I mean by that. So we've got relatively new placement measures. Jen is going to talk about the placement measures more fully next month, I believe. And so I just picked out the ACT score. And if we look at the sample cut scores for college level without support, that a student that has a math ACT of 22 or higher can go into standalone college algebra. Below 22, they would take the co-requisite course. If they're in a contemporary math or elementary statistics pathway, then a 19 or higher gets them into the standalone college level. Below a 19 would place them into the co-requisite. There are other scores, hence the term multiple measures, but just to keep it simple for today. So what can happen if we're not careful about keeping the student's academic goal first is that a student might present with an ACT of a 20. And if the messaging has not been clear across campus about focusing on academic goal first, then what might happen is someone tells the student, oh, with an ACT of 20, that puts you into contemporary math, or that puts you into elementary statistics. And what that does then is cuts off some of their academic pathways. So we definitely want to be sure that we focus on first identifying that program or meta major before we start looking at what our placement scores, right? So figure out the math course first, and then the placement score. So explicitly communicating internally early and often that placement measures should not be used to identify the math course that students qualify for, that they should be the last step in identifying what supports they qualify for. So that leads us right into messaging to students. We know that there are that many students are afraid of math. They may be afraid of a math course they never heard of, such as contemporary math. They may look at assignment to a 5 or 6 credit math course as their worst nightmare. We all know those students. So the messaging to students has to be positive and asset-based, focused on helping them be successful. And so messaging that says your program faculty have chosen this particular math course as the best to ensure that your math experiences are relevant to your academic program and career. This math class is going to help you be successful in your program. And then to the point of students having a support course along with their college level course, to message that this support time is there to help you rather than stringing out your support over multiple semesters. This support is just in time and is focused on your success. So the first few years of implementing this work is the rockiest in this area because there can be 2 systems running side by side, right? If you do some pilots next fall, then there's going to be some developmental sequences and some co-requisite options running side by side. Once that all rolls off and students get used to this new normal, new students coming in won't know any different. And so you will have students that much less pushback on the pathways and on the co-requisite supports. Some examples of some messaging to students. This is an example from a college in San Antonio where they've done some, they were trying to brainstorm on how they were going to support students in implementing pathways in a variety of ways, including math pathways and co-requisite supports. And they came up with the idea of developing a game that advisors would use with students. The interesting thing about this game is that they in the process of developing the game and vetting the game and the faculty and advisors playing the game, they actually learned some things themselves and worked out some issues of the process. And I'll drop the links in the chat when my part is over so that you can see a paper that talks about this process. This is an example from a university, and this is a website example. So we had a tool, a game tool. This is a website example. Notice it on the website that we have, touchy screen. We have that at the top, it says the program. So first, what is your program? Let's focus on your academic goal. Are you in journalism? Okay, here's your math pathway. Are you in business? Here's your math pathway. And so that's a website example. And then this is an example from a community college. Notice this was just when they were implementing their math pathways, that they had not yet implemented co-requisites. So we do still see some developmental courses up here at the top. So if you disregard that, the point here being twofold. One is, again, there is the focus on the pathway. So are you STEM? Then here is the math course you take, or maybe you place higher based on your background. If you are business, here are your math courses, non-STEM and teaching. This is actually a flyer that was used around campus, stuck on building doors, billboard, bulletin boards, on the back of the stalls in the bathrooms, even signs on sticks stuck out in the lawn as students walked from class to class. They would see these flyers. So they were getting a regular message, a positive message about how this math fits your career plan. Here's how you choose. Yesterday in there was a placement committee meeting, and the comment came out that many students do not see an advisor, and they choose their own. And so having this clear messaging to students can really help get students into the right math pathway. If we go back and look at our list of 5 lessons learned, we've talked about students' academic goals and how to message to them that math pathways and co-requisites are going to help them achieve those goals. Internal communication. I know that you are all very familiar with internal communication strategies. I just one thing that has tripped up some campuses is a perception that this is math department work and not something that other people really need to worry about much, when really it impacts all the disciplines. It impacts all of the support services, registrars, and so on. And so having that strategic and regular communication about the positives and the nuts and bolts of math pathways, co-requisites, and multiple measures placement is really important. Promoting and honoring departmental collaboration, both the disciplines and the services. I think it's, ideally the work will be shared so that everyone feels ownership rather than a few people bearing the brunt of the work. Also, ideally, there'd be funds or release time, but at minimum, if you can look for ways to honor the work, perhaps through like the tenure and promotion process, for example, and a commitment to teaching excellence, that sort of thing, in terms of as people redesign courses and all of that. So just promoting that departmental collaboration and then honoring the work. Finally, inspecting data, aggregate and disaggregated data both. Classroom data, pathways data, program data, success data for sure, but also beyond success data. So an example of that would be if you look at how many students are in programs that have statistics as their math requirement, look at that percentage, and then look at what percentage of students are actually taking statistics. If those two things are out of alignment, then that means that the pathways are not functioning properly. Students are being advised into or placing themselves into the wrong pathway, and they need to intervention needs to happen to get that back on track. So those are kind of the high-level 5 lessons learned.